Do you remember the launch of the Nintendo Switch? The eShop was like a desert, a complete wasteland, and all the light was basically directed towards a single game. Yeah, Zelda Breath of the Wild. You could safely say that this game literally carried the Switch on its shoulders, at least at the start of the Switch's arrival. But this time is different. A plethora of titles are being launched for the Nintendo Switch 2 right from the start, and I have to be honest to say that many of the games are really interesting. The launch of the Switch 2 will include a wide range of both epic and small scale games. In this video we take a look at some of these games that are being released on day 1. It hardly came as a surprise that Nintendo would launch a new Mario Kart for Switch 2, but that it would be an open world game was perhaps not as expected. Nintendo probably wanted to test new concepts and not just stick to the classic format with cups divided into a number of courses. One novelty is the new knockout tournament, where up to 24 players can race at the same time. The principle is as simple as it is ingenious. If you are not fast enough, you will be eliminated, and if you are the best, you will emerge victorious. But not everything is new. Battle mode returns. Here you can once again compete to collect coins or pop your opponent's balloons. What has created some controversy is the price. Mario Kart World is set at $80, which is a significant increase compared to what Nintendo usually charges. Nintendo has certainly been criticized for these prices, but if you look at development costs, amount of content, the game experience and a possible replay value, then perhaps these prices are justified. Nintendo has also been clear that $80 is not a new standard, but that each game will be priced individually. For example, Donkey Kong Bonanza will be sold for $70, a pretty high price in my opinion. Square Enix is also delivering a game for the new Switch. Bravely Default Flying Fairy is certainly not a new game. It was launched for Nintendo's 3DS back in 2013. But now Square Enix is delivering a remastered version of this game. Bravely Default Flying Fairy is a turn-based RPG that this time contains a number of changes and improvements. Of course, the graphics have been updated and modernized. There are 2 new minigames, one of which is a rhythm game and another where you take on the role of a pilot. The UI has been redesigned, and then there are a lot of small changes, such as the ability to fast forward. You also get to take part in a story about some heroes who embark on an epic journey. An entire village has been swallowed up by the underworld, and now some survivors must investigate what is going on. I remember that Bravely Default 2, which was released for the first Switch, was a really good RPG, so it is with a certain amount of anticipation that I am looking forward to this adventure. Then we have one of the most bizarre games. The first time I saw pictures of Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, I thought it was just a demo or tutorial that was included in the whole package. But no, this is basically a manual for the new Switch, and Nintendo is going to charge for it. $10. For that you get a collection of minigames and a bundle of instructions on the console's various functions. The question is whether this is among the greediest things Nintendo has ever done. It's a bit reminiscent of the launch of the first Switch, where many felt that the game 1-2 Switch should have been included in the console package, but even that game was sold separately. Now Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour is significantly cheaper in comparison, but you still have to pay for it. Cyberpunk 2077 will also be released on day 1. This special edition is called the Ultimate Edition and seems to be tailor-made for the Switch 2. I am mainly talking about how the game takes advantage of the Switch's unique features, especially how the Joy-Cons can be used and how easy the menus are to navigate in handheld mode. Cyberpunk can also be purchased in physical format, and from what I understand, this version contains basically everything, both from the base game itself and the DLC, so if you buy the physical version, you shouldn't have to download a lot of extra stuff. The bulk of the game seems to fit on the game card. Both Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are coming in new updated versions for Switch 2. But what does this really mean? It's not that we are getting two completely new games, rather it's about small changes and upgrades. If someone had told me that the games would come with completely new DLCs, I would have been very interested in this, but what we are really getting are just improved versions of two already very good games. Sure, after seeing pictures of the new versions, you can clearly see that they look better visually. But overall I think the versions that came to the original Nintendo Switch were of a high standard. They were good as they were, and if you already played through both games and discovered every single secret, then the question is whether this is really worth buying. But let's still go through what you're getting. Both games come with visual improvements, which is now possible with a more powerful console. Nintendo is highlighting higher resolution, more stable frame rate and HDR support. In addition, loading times will be shorter. The loading times were perhaps a slight minus in the past, but now we no longer have to sit and wait between all the teleportations. This is a good thing. Nintendo is also adding an extra save slot for those who want to have more than one game rolling. In addition to all this, it will be possible to connect the games to the Switch app, which unlocks some new features. You can share blueprints with other players and get new information from Princess Zelda. So overall, these are two improved versions of two very good games. The question is whether it is worth it. If you already own the original games, you can pay about $10 per upgrade. However, if you want to buy the games new for Switch 2, then you will probably have to pay around $90. Just like the Zelda games, we also get a new updated version of Hogwarts Legacy. This game was released at the end of 2023 for the first Switch and received some criticism, such as long loading times and that it generally performed worse compared to how the game ran on the PS5 and Xbox. Nothing remarkable about that considering the difference between the consoles, and perhaps the upcoming version that will be released for the Switch 2 will give the players a smoother and more complete experience. At least the developers have created a new version that will contain updated graphics and sound. It should be possible to use a mouse and the loading times are shortened, so overall it seems to be a much smoother and better looking version that will be released for the Switch 2. However, there are some economic question marks. From what I've heard, it will not be possible to buy an upgrade, even if you already own the game for Switch 1. This means that if you want to experience the game on Switch 2, you will have to buy the game again. In my opinion, it's quite a lot of money to spend if you already own the game. Maybe this will change the more information we get, but right now it seems like you will have to buy a new separate version of the game. Then we have Civilization 7. This game was released back in February, but is being relaunched for Switch 2. Civ 7 is a turn-based strategy game that in many ways revolves around the development of humanity, from early settlements to advanced societies. There is already a version of the game for the Nintendo Switch, and if you can't wait, you can buy a copy right now. And if you then buy an upgrade pack, you can also play the game on Switch 2. This pack costs $10. Deltarune Chapters 1 to 4 are also coming to Switch 2. This RPG, developed by Toby Fox, is perhaps one of the more unconventional games in the genre. The battles in particular often contain elements that are rarely seen in other games. The chapters have been delivered over a long time, but now we get the opportunity to play through 4 of them. And according to the developer, more new content is promised over time. So maybe Deltarune is worth checking out if you appreciate RPGs with an odd twist. Then we have Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, an action strategy game delivered by Capcom. The game was released for Xbox and PlayStation back in 2024, but it's now making its debut on Switch 2. If you pre-order this game, you will get some bonuses as well, among other things, extra equipment for the characters and an art book about Kunitsu-Gami. Apparently, the game didn't sell as well as Capcom had hoped, despite the game receiving relatively good reviews, and perhaps it is a smart move to launch the game for Switch 2 and thus reach a new audience. In the last video I talked about Nobunaga's Ambition, and I have to say that I am pretty hyped for that game. It's certainly not a new game since it's already available for the old Switch, and I assume it should be possible to buy an upgrade if you already own the old version. Nobunaga's Ambition will contain a number of new features, 6 new scenarios, and the ability to use a mouse, visual improvements and much more. All to ensure that the experience of conquering Japan feels as satisfying as possible. Survival Kids is coming to Switch 2 on day 1, but this IP has been around for a long time. Survival Kids was launched for the Game Boy Color about 25 years ago, so this may be a relatively familiar game series. This adventure, which takes place on different islands, gives the player the opportunity to explore, craft, fish, cook and solve puzzles in order to survive. The game places great emphasis on cooperation, and apparently some elements are easier to complete if you play with friends or online. It also seems to be a relatively menu-free game. Even if you collect hundreds of items, you don't have to switch between different menus to create or use what you have found. I think this is quite interesting, because you usually need to keep track of everything you've found, but in this game it apparently works in a different way. Yakuza Director's Cut is getting a new version for Switch 2. This mafia game is said to be the definitive version of the game, where the player gets to experience an epic crime drama. This special version contains new cutscenes and in-depth information about key scenes and various characters. There is also an online feature where you can choose from 60 characters who fight against hordes of enemies. The Rune Factory series has built a large fanbase over the years, and now it's time for a new adventure. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is being released for the old Switch a week before the launch of the Switch 2, and there is the option to buy an upgrade pack for $10. Guardians of Azuma is basically a combination of an action RPG and life simulation game. You can choose between 2 protagonists whose destinies are connected by mysterious forces. The game, which is heavily inspired by Japanese culture, offers the player the opportunity to build entire villages, explore magnificent landscapes, and perhaps experience romance. And here is a quick rundown of the rest of the titles launching on day 1. Tetris is making a comeback on Switch 2, and the version that is released this time comes with some new features. It should now be possible to play 2 versus 2, and you can also choose between 40 different characters, for example Sonic. There are also some racing games coming to Switch 2. Fast Fusion looks really nice, and you can expect 4K resolution with 60 FPS. If this racing game meets expectations, then I think we will get a really good racing game. Arcade Archives 2 Ridge Racer is also launching on day 1, and this is of course a more classic example from the racing genre. As I mentioned in a previous video, Hitman is also coming to Switch 2. The collection includes 3 titles and a lot of content that should satisfy fans of the series. Fortnite is also launching on day 1 and includes most of the best the game has to offer. You can build your own island, take part in festivals or play Fortnite in the classic original way. Then there is Giant Post Beer Idol, a game that only seems to be released in Japan, but it's basically a management simulation game. Sonic is also returning. Sonic X Shadow Generations is said to feature all new content, including a new campaign, but the game also includes a remastered version of Sonic Generations, a time travel themed adventure. Then we have Split Fiction. This is a fairly new adventure game where well-coordinated cooperation is the key to success. The developers behind the hit game It Takes Two had this time created a game where you and your friends have to overcome tricky obstacles in order to progress. I don't think it's possible to play solo, so you have to team up. Okay, there we had a number of games that are released on day 1 for the new Nintendo Switch, and I must say that it is an extensive repertoire of games from all genres. Looks pretty okay on paper. What do you think? Feel free to comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give the video a thumbs up. Have a great day. See ya!